Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the show that is getting back to normal, or some form of normal after the lockdown. Now, my name is Tosin, I am your host, I'm based up in Coventry in the Midlands, and joining me as always on the Isle of Wight are Sharon.
Hello.
And Shaun.
Hiya.
Now, you might be wondering, okay, when you talk about Netflix versus cinema, what is this in the tin? How do we go about deciding who's going to win Netflix versus cinema? And now, because cinemas are back, we can finally get back to our usual format, which is where we see a couple of things, usually 3 in the cinema. We see a couple of things at home on various streaming platforms, led by Netflix, and then we decide, rate them all out of 5, and we decide who has won this week. So cinema has come back. It's been giving us a little bit of it's been giving it some. Won't you say, guys? Won't you guys say that cinema has been giving it a little bit after returning?
Yes, I think it's been a bit timid to start, but I think it's beginning to pick up pace now.
All right.
And they're and I think it's showing. I think films that may have been relegated to the really small screens with a couple of really obscure showings, I think they've moved forward a bit because some of the big hitters have retreated or made a strategic withdrawal from the cinemas for a while, and so some of the small fry are suddenly getting a bit more of attention. So I think that in some way that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think definitely going by the films that we have on the slate today, it does seem to be the case. So for the cinema today, we're going to be talking about Babyteeth, the Australian movie. I think it's sort of like broadly described as an Australian coming of age drama. Then there's a Pinocchio. Now, if I'm correct, this is an Italian adaptation of Pinocchio.
An Italian-French version.
An Italian-French version.
A Franco-Italian version, yeah.
Oh, cool. And then we have an American Pickle.
Yeah.
We have an American Pickle, not people. Seth Rogen versus Seth Rogen. And then on the Netflix side, we have Killing Eve Season 2, which I have finally finished watching, Project Power from Netflix, and Fear the Walking Dead Season 5. So we have a BBC iPlayer, Netflix, and an Amazon Prime. Now,
yeah.
So we'll kick off with Shaun. Shaun, who I have to say, I in my head, you are loving cinemas being back so much. It's kind of like, you've gotten an old friend back. So,
yeah.
So
it's like that.
Well, it's a bit like that. All right. And I actually realized that my local cinema opens up tomorrow.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of snuck up on me. I was like, oh my God, it's here. It's here. And Tenet is going to be on screen next week. So it's pretty good. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe, Shaun, I might be like you and be like, hello, old friend. Maybe I will do that. But first of all, let's find out. So the first film that we have on the slate this week is one that you saw. Only you're the one who's seen it. This is a film called Babyteeth. And
Babyteeth, yes.
Yeah, with what Sharon was saying about a smaller film actually getting pride of place because all the big hitters are not around. I feel like this is the kind of film that would have gotten lost, that would have been released in the same week as an Avengers or something like that, and because of that, not many people would have seen it. But now it's probably kind of like pride of place. And if you've ever heard Ben Mendelsohn, who I believe stars in the film, talk about this film, he has been raving about this film for like a year and a half, just going, "Oh my God, you've got to see Babyteeth! It's great! It's great! It's great!" So, Shaun, Babyteeth, is it great? Was Ben Mendelsohn right, or was he just pulling our legs?
Okay, so what we've got, we've seen a lot of Australian movies lately, haven't we? And this one is it's like, I guess you could say, it's about this teenager is, she's very much like, really, well, she comes from a dysfunctional family. The whole family's dysfunctional. Ben Mendelsohn's wife. Ben Mendelsohn is a psychologist, and his wife, that's how it starts off, actually. Ben Mendelsohn with his wife on the couch like that, and then it goes on to other things. So it's quite a comedic bit. And then you meet her daughter, their daughter, who's quite ill. So, and she just happens to be going to school one day, and she bumps into this really, really strange character who he's like a drug dealer, really got all the tattoos, got loads of stuff, and just says, will you do something for me? Will you come home with me? Will you? So, and it turns out her mum's like a super, like every possible drug you could possibly imagine, quaaludes and uppers and downers and all sorts of stuff. And being that Ben Mendelsohn's a psychologist and a doctor, he can write prescriptions. And so they obviously disapprove of, but he still comes to sort of stay with them for whatever reason. And then Ben Mendelsohn sort of, there's other characters, isn't it? There's this woman over the road that keeps calling him for a dog, this pregnant woman that's full of tattoos and stuff and just moved in.
Yep.
And so you've got this really, really dysfunctional household with all these different people. And yeah, it's really, really good actually.
All right.
I mean, so yeah, so
because
like those,
so far it sounds just like your standard indie movie fare.
Yeah. But I think it's more. It's like like you got all these really romantically sad films. Like I mean, I suppose it would have started with Love Story, but then you've got those. I mean, I never really watched them because it's not my bag. But like the ones where they're ill and there's like. And it's all.
Oh, The Fault in Our Stars, that type of thing.
Yes.
That's it.
Is
Thank
it
you, Sharon.
6 feet
I was
apart?
trying to think.
There's a couple out there where
5 feet apart.
Yeah.
5 feet apart.
Well,
I would add the notebook to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is like that, but it isn't like that at all. So the story's like that, but the whole family is pretty dysfunctional. And I can actually relate to some. I could imagine it being like that. You've got the teenage daughter. She's a bit antsy. Sometimes she's nice. Sometimes she's horrible. A lot of times she's horrible. The guy who plays Moses is like, he's like, obviously, if he's a drug dealer, he's not particularly the nicest of people. But he is sort of nice, if you know what I mean. Although he's got all these nasty traits, he's still got quite a nice little side to him. Do you know what I mean? And he sort of feels and one thing and the other. So. Yeah, it's and like you said, well, Ben Mendelsohn, I have to say Ben Mendelsohn is absolutely class. But then he is in most things. To be fair, I think he's excellent in most of the things he does. He's I can't really he was even one of the best things in the Star Wars, that Star Wars Rogue One. Yeah. So yeah, it's basically it's you can imagine a family being like that, obviously because her daughter's ill and because she thinks so much of this Moses, they sort of accept that fact as well. Do you know what I mean? Because I guess they're thinking of the thing, oh, well, let's what.
Well, so Moses is the tattooed drug dealer who becomes her boyfriend.
Basically, yes.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
He becomes her boyfriend. And although she's a lot older than, he's a lot older than she is, their parents sort of let it go. And the ending is wow. I think the ending is brilliant. To me, the ending is a class ending. I really, really, really like the way this ended. And it's not schmaltzy, it's not all like that, but it was just it was spot on. I mean, I've put a few. I mean, from some of the things I said, I hope to think that there may be a few sort of Easter eggs in there with one thing and another, but you'll have to work out because I don't want to put in any spoilers.
Yep.
So yeah, I just think I think this is a really, really, really top film. Really, really top film. Convinced me. Some of the things that happened, it was like,
so there was nothing stupid.
I don't think so. No.
How many stars?
There was a few sort of comedic elements, but I don't think there was anything stupid, and I totally believe there could be a dysfunctional family.
You see that? Yeah, no. This is high praise from Shaun, indeed. This is.
This is indeed.
So, how many stars would you give it?
4 star. 4 star.
4 star.
Give this one a 4.
Oh, 4 star for so Ben Mendelsohn was not pulling her legs. Babyteeth, it really is that great.
Yeah, it really is good. It's a top movie. I mean, as I say, I've never seen like films like The Notebook or Happy Ever After or whatever they are. I have seen a couple, I guess. I saw that one with what the girl was in Game of Thrones recently, which
me without you, or Me Before You, or something.
Yeah.
Or Last Christmas.
Last Christmas. Oh yeah.
Last Christmas, that's the one. Yeah, but anyway, any of those, it's although it's a story like that, it's nothing like that. If you know what I mean, it's nothing like that. It's just
so it centers around
clever.
Well, it centers on a young sick woman but it doesn't go the full-on schmaltz and violins and everything like that. And
totally not. No, totally not.
Cool.
Totally not that.
Sounds
and
like
it's straight to the fact. Yeah, you know, and it's like, yeah, I'm tired. You know what I mean? It was proper, real good. Yeah, 4-star.
Cool. Good stuff. So that is kicking off. Cinema kicking off well. As Sharon says, you say that, you know, it's beginning to sort of like, you know, pull itself and going, yes, this is good. And now we go over to Netflix and we go on to Killing Eve season 2, which I finally finished watching. If you listened to the show last week, you realize that I had watched nothing because I had a lot of things that I've been watching that I haven't finished. So I had Killing Eve season 2. I had Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I still haven't finished Noughts and Crosses, which tells you a little bit about that. Even though I started watching it before lockdown, it's only 8 episodes. I still haven't finished watching it. So, but Killing Eve is something that I eventually thought, okay, cool, we got locked down, might as well start watching this. Everybody's been raving about this thing for 3 years. Let's actually watch it. And I reviewed the first season, and I told you about how the first season was really, really good because you have all these characters, and it is pretty much like, you know, when you have a cat and mouse game, like, you know, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in Heat. That kind of thing, where you have these two people who are sort of circling each other, and it's like, oh, what's going to happen? They have this sort of weird attraction to each other because, you know, you think there might be two different sides of the same coin. All that stuff was put into, so it's a bit of it's a usual trope, but the main thing about it was that almost every character in it was weird, and every character in it zigged when you thought that they were supposed to zag. And it was just, and that's what I think made it fresh. It made it crazy, and the fact that you had a female assassin and a female MI5 agent, and they're chasing each other all around Europe, mostly trying to catch each other. And and I said season 1 ended, and it felt like the first chapter of a story, and it goes into season 2. Season 2 I don't think it quite keeps up to the same level, because I think season 2, there's a couple of things that, you know, you feel they begin to happen because that's the kind of thing that happens in this kind of story. So there's some characters that you meet. There's one particular character you meet quite early on where Villanelle, the character played by Jodie Comer, meets this person, and this person ends up being exactly what you think this person will be. It's kind of like, it's like, it was almost kind of like, oh, where's the inventive? No, come on, guys, come on. This isn't you. You're better than this. And they go into all sorts of ways of trying to sort of like continue the story. And by the end of the season, I think it goes quite well. But it's lacking the drive of the first season. You know, the drive of the first season, which is like, was all about, there's this fight between this person and this person. Who's going to win? How's it going to happen? Who's going to come out on top? It's called Killing Eve. Is Eve going to get killed? And that was the drive of the first season. And I think that the second season kind of loses it because it's almost kind of saying, oh, we have these great characters, and what would have happened? Like, let's say, you know how it happens in films like Heat, and I hope it isn't a spoiler to say that one of the characters kills one of the other characters, and that's the natural ending of the story. But I think almost with this, they go, these characters are too good. There's more to explore with them, but they're not entirely sure what it is they're going to explore. It isn't really, really clear what they're going to explore with them. So there's bits in it I just think kind of go a little bit samey, and it's not as fresh as the first season. Although it is still very good. I would give it a 3 out of 5. So that's 3 out of 5 for Killing Eve season 2 for me. And
okay.
Yeah, but I would recommend watching it. I think yes.
Because I mean, I haven't really seen the Killing Eve. I've seen clips, but you said, I think you gave one a 4, didn't you?
Season 1 is a 4. Season 1 is a 4.
It's a 4, yeah, but this is a 3.
Yeah, season 1 is a 4 just because it's just kind of fresh. It's just kind of fresh, and you're like, oh my god, what's going on? There's bits of season 2, like when a character shows up, to quote Villanelle, it's so boring because you've seen it so many other times, and it's just kind of like, yeah. But I'll tell you, the set design for this and the costumes for this, because the costumes, Villanelle, I think the costume designer for this has got to have won loads of awards just because it looks gorgeous. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and you have all these things like where they have all these different locations like Barcelona, Tuscany, all the Paris, and it's also quite funny because every now and then the same way they give, you know, they give you like the Paris treatment where you have a cobbled street and you see like her walking along, be looking all chic on the sidewalk, or Tuscany, you see a vineyard, and then the words Tuscany come up on screen, and then they do the same thing to Basildon, where you have like you have this random street. It's raining. Someone's walking along, and they just go Basil, dude. But they try to big Basildon up the same way they big up Tuscany, and it's quite funny. I think there's this sort of subversive humor about it, where it knows what kind of genre it is and it's playing with it. But I feel like in the second season, it's not as good as the first. So yeah, that's it.
It seems like they churned out all three of the seasons quite quickly.
Very quickly.
No sooner had one been out of the way, then it was like another one and then another one.
Yeah,
they seem to be boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it's very quick, and I'm not entirely sure why that is, or whether they'd already planned them before, like, they filmed the first one, because they did come out really, really quick. It was like no sooner had season 1 started showing and people started raving about it, that they said season 2 is going to come, and season 2 seemed to come very quickly after season 1.
Yeah.
And same thing with season 3. I think they might have been stopped now because of COVID. But they do seem to come really quickly. I don't know exactly why, but it is a joint thing between the BBC and I think HBO, or one of the American companies, one of the big American companies. But I think definitely season 1 is definitely. I think either one of them is definitely worth your time. But it's after the high of season 1, it's a little bit of a letdown. And right, so now we go back to cinema, and here we have Pinocchio. Now, Pinocchio is one of those things that I think everybody thinks that they know. Everybody thinks they know, mostly because of Disney. But Sharon, you want to tell us Pinocchio? What is up with this Pinocchio? Why is it different? Why is it out now?
Yes, so this is a live action version of Pinocchio, and I don't know if it's because it's closer to the source material in that it was made by a European, sort of a Franco-Italian film company, that they sort of, it felt European, if that makes sense. The way it was constructed and the way the story sort of took its time, it just had that, and to me it had that Italian vibe to it. But anyway, this is a live action version of Pinocchio, and it's taking it back to a world that is not quite like ours, but it's you don't know what period it's set in. The clothes are they're like, could be 200 years ago, could be 400 years ago.
Yeah.
You just don't know quite when it's set because there's no real technologies for you to date it. And it's a world where magic happens without it raising an eyebrow. It's part of the world in which they live. And so Giuseppe, what's his name? Geppetto is a very poor carpenter who basically is down to trying to sell his coat for a meal, and he goes into a local restaurant and he's like saying, hey, this chair's very wobbly and this table needs fixing, just to sort of have enough money to feed himself. And one day he sees a traveling puppet circus where they've got these sort of amazing sort of marionettes there, and he thinks, I could make some money doing this. If I made the perfect puppet, I could then go and do my own little shows and I could make money.
Yeah.
And it just happens that he goes to a guy who has wood, and he has a magical log that he's a bit scared of because it just moves on its own, and it sort of is inhabited by these sort of strange powers. And so he says, yeah, you can have this log, Geppetto. So he takes this log home, and then he creates this perfect puppet, and he says, call me Papa, and then the puppet replies, Papa.
Yeah.
And then you have Pinocchio. He's becomes this fully formed, naughty, stubborn, innocent, bad, good little boy, all little boys are.
It sounds like it gives, like, that's more backstory than I've ever heard. Like, I've never read the original story of Pinocchio. I've only ever read adaptations and bits that were made for probably an English kid audience, which I'm imagining might have sanded off some of the rough edges and all that. So, but it sounds like they've given a lot more backstory as to how Pinocchio came into being than I've ever heard. Yeah.
And yes, because you feel that you move into a world that's not quite like our own, but there's enough of it for you to recognize. But yeah, and then as Pinocchio goes on his adventures, he's sent to school, but he decides not to go. He wants to go into somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then his sort of series of adventures and misadventures happens, where he meets good people who you think are bad people, and then he meets bad people who they present themselves to be good people, and then he meets just a whole raft of strange characters, like a maid who's a snail and who walks really slowly.
Yeah.
And there's a blue fairy, there's a tuna that has a chat with him, there's all these strange weird, there's the cat and the fox, there's all these
yeah,
and there's some of these characters you may recognize from Disney.
Yeah, so Shaun, you were going to say?
I was just going to say, don't forget the judge as well, the monkey judge.
There's the monkey judge.
I found those, and Jiminy Cricket and what have you. I mean, it's quite strange because I liked a lot of aspects of this, but I think I didn't really see the point of the monkey judge. And I mean, I know that they're probably part of the story, but I'm like Tosin. I don't know the original story. I'm only au fait with the Disney version. So, but yeah, I wouldn't that aspect of it. I didn't see why that needed to be in there really. But
I just think
you'll probably put me right on that.
No. I think it's basically he's learning about humanity. He's just before he can become a real boy, he has to understand about real humanity, and he learns about truth and justice. And the judge is there because he learns about what is justice and what is the law.
But does he actually learn?
Well, you sort of see because it's all upside down.
Yeah.
Afterwards he sort of begins. You see him learning. You know, things that are turned up. Some of the world is upside down, and that he has to work out what's good and what's bad and what's right and what's wrong, and he has to work that out through these series of misadventures. And so I think each sort of mini adventure he has, there's a lesson in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the moral tale all told all together.
Yeah, because
so, yes,
I've heard that that the original is almost supposed to be like a satire of Italian society at the time that it was made.
I can probably believe it, yeah, because of the characters like this, yeah, the aristocrats and the travelling fairs and the judge and the merchants. How, yeah, there's no compassion and no pity in many of these people, and so for him to learn compassion and pity is it's a long journey for him to take.
Okay, so it just makes me think, like, you know, things like, it's a bit like when they talk about Jane Austen, and and they say, oh, that she thinks some of the things that she wrote, she was satirizing English society at that time. And I'm like,
oh yeah, she's quite sharp. Yeah, Jane Austen.
And that's just totally over my head, and it's a bit like it, I guess, with something like Pinocchio. So what did we think about it? So Shaun, let's go with you first. What did you think about it?
Okay, well, this film, I mean, it was really, really interesting. It was quite visually stunning, I thought, and it was interesting. It made me think a little bit more about the stories, and I did like the fox and the cat. Was it the fox and the cat? It was the fox and the cat, wasn't it, Sharon?
Yeah.
I thought they were quite good, although I thought they would have been a bit more. Do you know what I mean? But who did they remind me of? They reminded me of. I know this sounds strange, but like, you know, like Gollum in The Ring. He's like trying to be. Come on, Hobbits, come on. Well, those two were like, oh, we're your friends. You know what I mean? We're your friends, but obviously they're not really your friends. And I guess those two would have been in the Disney version. They would have been. Hi diddly dee, an actor's life for me, wasn't it? So that was obviously Disney's take for those two characters. But yeah, on the whole, I thought it was okay. I had a couple of issues with it, and but on the whole, generally speaking, I thought it was a well-crafted film. As I say, it was quite stunning. Sometimes, bye, we got a bit on your nerves, but I guess that's what it was.
All right.
Yeah, it's interesting because I get the feeling it was probably filmed in Italian and then it's dubbed. So some of the phrases they thought, the mouth shapes, they've always thought we're just going to have to go with the Italian because we cannot make Italian, this match.
Yeah.
This
it's dubbed.
Right.
It's dubbed.
Yeah,
it's
I got the feeling.
I got the feeling. Yes. Yeah.
You get the impression that it's made almost entirely in the Italian language, and then they just dubbed it over in English. But it's very well done. I mean, it's only a few places you're going, I don't think you said that, but it was very well done.
I agree.
Yeah.
What's the final thing? What's the bottom line? How many stars would you guys give this?
For me, it gets a 3-star. For me, a 3-star.
Yeah, I would give it a 4-star because I liked the way that it took its time. I think if you were because there were some young children in the cinema when I went, and some of them got a bit fidgety because it does take its time, and some of the sort of little adventures of Pinocchio, I think if it was crafted just for young children, they probably would have cut out some of those, and they would have made a much tighter, compact storytelling. But I quite like the fact that it was this longer journey, and that these grotesques that you meet were quite grotesque. That there's nothing cute about this sort of film. Even like Jiminy Cricket there was something grotesque about him.
Yeah,
and
yeah, there was,
a lot of them are a bit like in that
Italian,
like Italian sort of way. When you look at like the masquerade puppets, the carnival puppets, they are a bit grotesque. So I like that aspect of it, that it was a little bit tweaked to the grotesque side of things. So I actually enjoyed it.
Would you say was that your? Would you say is the dreaded word darker?
Film?
Yes.
Have you? Is that the first film you've seen at the cinema since it's been back, Sharon, or have you seen?
No, I went to see Proxima as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So this was like I was slightly more uncomfortable at this particular drop. I'll go back to Pinocchio. Definitely a 4-star for me. But my cinema experience this time, because it was children in there, and I don't know what their idea about social distancing is, but
none.
Nearly everyone in the cinema, we're all packed up close together. And I thought the idea was you'd have maybe spare seats, or you'd have spare rows or whatever. But, there's a family behind me. I had one seat in the middle of my row thinking, oh, I'm going to be a nice distance apart. And then there's people in front of me. So we were literally I was like the filling in this family sandwich.
Oh.
There's 6 behind me and 6 in front of me.
I've been lucky.
And none of them were wearing masks. Yeah. None of them. But I had my mask on the whole time. So I was a bit like, did they just take their masks off as soon as they came in the cinema? Because the idea is that in all these public performances, you keep your mask on for the entire performance. But everyone, as soon as they sat down, masks came off, and they sat there chomping on their popcorn. And so I was a little bit like, I'm not as comfortable as this as I was when I was the only one in there.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, yeah, okay. I have all that to go to see. Look forward to from tomorrow when my cinema opens. Yay! Okay, cool.
Yay.
Shaun, let's see if we can quickly get through Project Power. So from what I can understand about from what I can understand about Project Power, this is a superhero type film. But the idea is that the Project Power is all about this pill. It's this small yellow shiny pill that when people, it's a Netflix original, and when people,
it's like a little tube. I don't think it's so much a tube. It's like a little vial.
Yeah,
little vial. But yeah, so for all intents and purposes, a pill. Yeah,
and when people take it, it gives them superpowers for 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, 5-10 minutes, something. So for a limited time. So some of them have watches,
Oh, so they have to watches to see what they could do. Ooh. Oh.
Well, some of them do, some of them don't.
Oh, you see now, once you said that just puts a set piece in my head of somebody going, I've got to get out of this place, but I've only got 5 minutes. If I don't do this in 5 minutes, that's it. I'm going to be dead. But anyway, so I know it has Jamie Foxx in it. It has Joseph Gordon-Levitt in it. And what did you think about this?
Okay, yeah, this film, I think it was one of those Netflix film where they've just, like I've said this about last week, where they've got a chunk of money, and they've given it, and they've just said, do something with this chunk of money on this film. They're not really worried about how it goes. It's just, let's just make a movie. And I think, they do that, but Netflix can afford to do that because there's going to be some people that will like it, even if most people don't like it, there will be some people that will like it and they'll watch it because it's a streaming service, isn't it? So it doesn't matter whether the film's good or bad or indifferent. They're still going to. So it just got that feeling. It's like, here you go, here's a load of money, make a film. And you've got all these pills that give you all different superpowers. Some what they're going to give you, some you don't, and it's just basically a cop movie. It's like a chase movie, And then obviously, so you got. I mean, Jamie Foxx. I love Jamie Foxx, and I think he's good in this. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he's good in it as well. So that's probably where some of the money went. But they start off as should we say. Well, in between, there's this young girl that knows them both. She's like a bit of a pusher, but anyway, but they end up sort of not really, thinking they're on the wrong sides, and then it turns out that they sort of team up, and he goes, "Oh, I'm going to save this one for last. I'm going to save this one until I really, really need it." So yeah, basically it's a disappointment. I thought it was going to be quite good, but it's just a straightforward film. There's nothing new in it. There's nothing spectacular. I think there's an odd car chase and some people catching on fire and smashing through buildings and landing and other people freezing things and stuff. And so you've got all the powers that like the X-Men would have, all the Fantastic Four, stuff like that. But it never really, to me, there's no thought or passion put into it. It's just something that said, "There's a load of money. We'll give you a load of special effects. We'll give you a load of this. Make a film." So yeah. So I mean, it was okay. It was
how many stars?
Three.
3
star. Yeah, 3. I'll give it a 3 star because I didn't hate it.
Oh, all right,
I didn't hate it, but I didn't think it was. I mean, Jamie Foxx is always class. I think I love Jamie Foxx.
Sure, Shaun.
I rate him very high.
If I ever make a film, my aim is to have that review. Shaun comes up and Shaun says, "I didn't hate it." That for me would be like, "Oh yes, I nailed this." Okay, so
we're doing the Rocky Punch.
I'll be doing the Rocky Punch. I'll be freeze framing that thing and everything all over the place. If Shaun goes, "I didn't hate it. It made sense." Pretty high praise.
That's the word.
Especially for a Netflix original movie, because I know, Shaun, you are beginning to develop a certain kind of like pattern with Netflix original movies where you're like, no. So now we go back.
Just to me, it just seems that they just give money and they don't really. There's not a lot of thought go into it. Let's just make a film. Do what you want to do with no and. As I say, I think that's what they can do. They can afford to do that. And I've heard some other people talking about the same thing, saying they're okay movies, but they're nothing special,
Okay.
Maybe slightly self-indulgent.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's no. You see, I'm very, very reticent at the moment because the last time I recommended a Netflix original movie to Shaun to watch, we ended up with like
I
was in a discussion. I was in a discussion with people at work today about that because I said, because I've been watching a few Vietnam War films, like they go, "Oh, have you ever seen that film? It's supposed to be really, really good." Love I Bloods. And I said, "Yeah, no, no, we won't go there."
Yeah, we won't go there. We won't go there. But
we won't go there. So carry on.
I was just wondering. I was wondering what you would think about a film called "See You Yesterday," I remember I reviewed it on the show and I thought it was one of the best Netflix original movies. However, this has all the hallmarks of another misfire with me recommending something to Shaun because.
Well, I don't know. You recommended me the Nightingale.
The Nightingale, yeah.
The Nightingale, and I really, really enjoyed that. And that was a good recommendation. And if you hadn't have recommended that, the chances are I probably wouldn't have seen that one. So I did enjoy that one. I did enjoy that film.
Okay. I'll be brave. I'll stick my neck out and I'll say I wouldn't say you would like it. I'll say I would like to see what you think about.
Okay.
I'll be interested to see what you think about "See You Yesterday," which is it's a Netflix original, but I think that's actually one of the things where they give somebody who has some ideas something to do, and they actually do something quite. Well, I thought quite good.
Oh,
with
that's good.
Yeah, I thought quite good with it. But I do agree that they do give people the free reign to go make the film that you want to make without people holding you back. And then you find out that with some people, it might be a good thing for people to hold them back. But we're gonna get into what I think about Quentin Tarantino, and I'm gonna leave from that. But anyway, so we go back to the cinemas after Netflix. We go back to the solace of cinemas, Shaun's happy place, and you got to see the film An American Pickle. Now, from what I understand about this film, it is Seth Rogen, and Seth Rogen plays two roles. One of them is like he is an immigrant who arrives in New York from somewhere Eastern European, I think. And I can't remember exactly what country, but he arrives in New York.
Yeah, it's a made-up country. It's called Schlupp. Schlupp.
Okay. So he arrives in New York from Schlupp, and he falls into a vat of brine or pickle, and then he gets preserved for hundreds and hundreds of years. And when he gets out of the vat of pickle, he ends up meeting his descendants. And I think that's the whole thing.
His great grandson.
He also means descendants his great grandson, who's also played by Seth Rogen. So you have Seth Rogen acting opposite against Seth Rogen. Now, so that's the basic premise, and I think that as far as what the film's about, I don't really think that we need much more than that. It's like, fish out of water, frozen for hundreds of years, comes out and all that, meets his great grandson, and so from there, Shaun, what do you think they did with it? What did they do with that premise?
Okay, this is interesting because Seth Rogen, you're going to think, Pineapple Express and Sausage Party and all things like that, really. But it wasn't really that sort of movie. So the story is he's in this thing and there's Cossacks in it and what have you. And he goes, they go to America, basically. He works at this pickle factory. And it's quite funny. I must admit, his job is like killing rats. Well, the rats sort of turn on him, which is quite funny. It's quite, they turn on him and they're sort of all chasing. He tries to escape. He's up high, and the rats chasing the other side. He sort of steps back and he falls in this vat. No one's seen him because they're all doing other things. And it's like, right, the factory's closed. We ain't got no more money, so they cover him up, and then it just all goes into rack and Rooney, and then obviously he wakes up. But what was great about this? There's a really, really good. It's an early scene, and it's so great, explaining. Basically, there's this big press conference. He's at this press conference, and all the press are going, yeah, well, what about this, that, and the other, and that? And then he actually starts narrating in his head, and he said, yes, so the scientist explained everything to them, and then they go, all the press conference, they go, oh, right, okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. So they haven't had to go into too much detail. I thought it was a really, really good way of saying how he'd been served for this time. They didn't have to. It's just like, well, he's thinking, wow, yeah. And then the scientist explained it all to the press, and the press are like, oh, right, okay, yeah, that's good. That makes lots of sense. You know what I mean?
So essentially they're like, we're not going to tell you. That's not the point. Move on.
yeah. Move on. Exactly. Move on. So yeah, and then he sort of anyway. So he meets his grandson. His grandson's his great grandson. The parents have died in a car crash, and obviously he's probably got a little bit of depression there. But he's working on this app called Boppity Bop, which is like, and he says, I've spent sort of years and years on this trying to do the thing, and he wants to visit like the graveyard, and it's been taken over by a company, and there's like a big billboard in there, and then they turn up with a new billboard, and it's like got Russian vodka on it. It's like a vodka poster with He goes, the Cossacks have taken over. I need to buy this plot of land back. So anyway, he goes, well, I don't know what you're going to do, and so Seth decides he's going to make this pickle thing. So he's walking the streets a bit, and he finds a few bits. He becomes really, really popular, and of course, his great grandson, they've sort of had a bit of a falling out, and so he phones up the health department, and so you've got this conflict where he keeps trying to make it big, and then the great grandson is trying to bring him down all the time, and then there's a bit like he goes, because he's being from Eastern Europe, he's a bit opinionated, and a bit, so he becomes a bit of a celeb, and then his great grandson says, oh, have you ever tried Twitter? You should do Twitter. So, and then I guess this is like the parody of the Trump thing, because he's going, he says a lot of misogynistic stuff, and
as you would do if you'd been frozen for hundreds of years.
Yeah, so they all turn against him, and they're all chasing him, and it's because he just the grandson disguises himself, and he goes, oh, what would you say about Christian? I can't remember the exact thing it was, but he goes, oh yeah, that's terrible, never. And so of course he becomes all hated, and there's big and
the hashtag cancel him.
Hashtag yeah. So he's horrible. So it was like he's really popular for 1 minute. He's a real like big celebrity. He's come up with that, and then the next thing he's like the most hated pariah. Because obviously he's Jewish. So, and then it's like obviously he says, "Oh, I got to escape." It's a bit of a reconciliation at the end, should we say? So and and it's quite nice and short. This is quite a nice short film. I wouldn't call it a comedy. There's a few comedic moments in it. I would call it more of a drama. Oh yeah. And it was watchable. Yeah, it was watchable, and it was nice. It was really short. It was a short movie, so that was quite good. Just about the right amount length of time. There was enough in it to keep me interested. So certainly not a normal Seth Rogen movie. So
yeah, although the funny thing is, I feel like the normal Seth Rogen movie is changing, because if you look at some of the things he's done recently, he's been moving away from the sort of like frat boy comedy, like
stoner.
Yeah,
type thing.
he's moving away.
Yeah.
I mean, he still has that, but it's the films are getting more grown up. Like one of my favorite sort of surprises of last year was Long Shot with him and Charlize Theron.
Yeah,
Long Shot, great movie.
Yeah, great. I mean, like as a romantic comedy, like that's actually a really, really good film. And the fact that
was a really, really good film.
Yeah, I think.
And another film I liked him in was The Interview, where he goes to North Korea.
Oh yeah,
so that was quite good.
I think ever since he was in Steve Jobs, like because he plays Steve Wozniak in Steve Jobs in the film Steve Jobs. I think that's where he sort of like started moving and sort of growing up. But anyway, An American Pickle. How many stars would you give that?
Had enough to keep me interested. So this will get a 3-star. This will get a 3.
3-star. Had enough to get me interested. I didn't hate it. High praise indeed from Mr. Harris. Such high praise.
Oh, thank you.
All right, cool. And now we go to our final Netflix and Friends selection of the week. And this is Fear the Walking Dead Season 5. Now, anybody who's listened to this before will know that I am not the biggest Walking Dead fan. I don't understand why it's still on TV. I don't understand why they can still have anything new to say after 11 seasons. But not only that, they have gone and they have created multiple spin-off shows, which Sharon keeps on watching. So
I keep watching them.
So we keep talking about this. So Sharon, Fear the Walking Dead. I'm not going to ask you to convince me because I think that's too hard. Just tell me what this is about. Tell me why you keep watching this thing.
Yeah, well, The Fear the Walking Dead is the first of the spin-off series from The Walking Dead. And it started off going back to the very beginning of this sort of apocalypse, where you see it from an ordinary family point of view. And so you had that for the first sort of like 4 seasons. And then beginning of season 4, they had a different showrunner. So the direction of Fear the Walking Dead completely changed. Nearly sort of 90% of the cast changed, the setting changed, the aesthetic changed, everything changed about it. And so this is the first full season since effectively the rebrand of Fear the Walking Dead. And going into the next season, it's going to be changed again, so that they're going to change it yet again. So it's like they're trying to find their feet. Yeah. But in Fear the Walking Dead season 5, it takes you to a different part of America than that you see in The Walking Dead, and how different communities have experienced apocalypse in a different way. It's more or less like being these urban dwellers. They're sort of like Georgia and sort of that East Coast, how the East Coast has coped, where they've sort of moved into these communities. And now this is looking at like the West, where the communities have been very scattered, and it's not been so much about forming a group and a community. It's about how the individual copes. And in this season, it's about how these sort of people who've been loners, basically, they've not really fallen in with the group, they've not really found a base, how they have beginning to sort of create these networks. So how they've set up these they call them these way stations, where people can go to get basic supplies. So instead of having like your Alexandria and your Hilltop and your these sort of communities where they've got the numbers and where they can grow crops and they can rebuild. Yeah. These are like individuals who are scattered in ranches where they're like 30 miles from the nearest neighbor, and there is no community. Yeah. They're on their own. So it's taken a different slant on it. But yeah, this season's been interesting in that you get to see these sort of different stories, how it harks back like a Western, whereas I think The Walking Dead has always had the element of being a Western about it, but this is obviously set in a Western setting. And so one of the characters used to be a trick shooter in one of these Wild West towns. Yeah. And so he's adopted. He was a police officer in real life, but in his spare time he used to be this sort of gunslinger. And so he's basically assumed this persona. And as he's gone into the apocalypse, he's got the hat, the clothes, and he has his 2 sort of 6 guns by his side. And so how you see how people adapt to this apocalypse. Yeah. And so this is a different group of people. They've had a couple of crossovers from The Walking Dead, Morgan and Dwight, for those people who know The Walking Dead, and how their characters have evolved in a different setting outside of the big group, and how, there's a different type of conflict and different kind of challenges for them. So yeah, it's as another installment in the Walking Dead universe. It has its values.
All right, so
go
ahead, Shaun. Go ahead, Shaun. You're probably going to ask a more intelligent question.
Is there much action in it? Because I found like with the zombie action, is there much? Do they kill many zombies, or are they pretty much scattered too?
No, there's certainly zombies every week, because the zombies have a habit of, or the walkers, or growlers, or biters, or they each have a different. Each community has found their own nickname for them. So everywhere you go, they say, "Oh, the growlers are here," and they go, "Growlers? Oh, we call them walkers." So you have this sort of little thing. But yes, they tend to herd. So because they're attracted by noises and by different things, you often find you end up getting these herds of walkers. So they do encounter the herds, and they do encounter one they had.
So there's still action in it. It's not it's not more soap opery, because I always used to find when I watched the first couple of seasons, I mean, it was pretty good. The until they got on the boat, really, and in that first season, and then it seemed to become a bit soapy, bit sort of soap opery.
Oh yes, I think that's why they decided to change it, because they were finding that following this one family, it was becoming soap opera, because you had this core family, and they didn't really like to touch those core actors. And then they decided they're going to kill nearly the entire first season cast, and you end up left with only like 2 people from the original series are still in it. So it's quite a change. But yes, there's certainly fighting and drama, and this one they had what would happen if you did have a nuclear power station. So they because we've all people who watch apocalypse things, it's like, what do you do about the nuclear power stations then? Within a couple of years you're going to have a nuclear meltdown anyway, so why would you bother trying to survive an apocalypse when you know that there's a ticking time bomb in outside major cities all over the world? And this is where they deal with how they address issues like a nuclear meltdown.
Oh, cool.
And storms. And what do you do in a hurricane if you've got
all right, okay,
3 years after the world ended? So yes, it looks at different aspects of what life after civilization.
Sharon, I am happy for you. That's all I've I am happy for you. I'm happy you found something you enjoy. So how many stars would you give it?
I would, because I appreciate that it's not for the casual viewer. By the time you've got to season 5 of Fear the Walking Dead and season 11 of The Walking Dead, if you're still with it, you know what you're getting in for. For the casual viewer, I don't think there's much for it. So I would say I would give it a 3 stars, because that's recognizing I enjoyed it, but it's not going to be someone that you can step into and say, if I started watching this from season 5, would I have the faintest idea what was going on? Probably not. And so I would say it's not for the casual viewer, it's for the diehards out there. So I would recognize that and say it's a 3.
I just feel like it's never going to end. Give me an end.
Well, they've got another series starting called The Walking Dead World Beyond. I think it's called.
I know.
Basically, 10 years on.
It's not going to end, is it? I mean, they've just told you that 10 years later there's still zombies and there's still the walking. Oh, for goodness sake! It's not going to end.
Well, you know that the comics ended, so it will end at some point.
Yeah, the comics.
But at the moment,
the comics ended, and I actually quite like the way that the writer, I think it was Robert Kirkman, I like the way he ended the comics, in that he didn't actually tell the TV show people that he was ending the comics. He released it, and he didn't tell anybody it was going to be the last one. He released the comic. People read it and went, "Oh my god, that's the end. That's gonna be." and I think that the showrunners were kind of like, "How very dare he?" But I don't think that's going to stop them making these things. I'm going to be like 50-year-old, and they're still going to be Walking Dead season 35.
Well, they're still churning out the Star Trek different incarnations, aren't they? And a similar premise. So I suppose if you like your post-apocalyptic zombie drama, there is scope for you to explore all sorts of things.
The thing with Star Trek, which I find a bit easier to handle, is that it's episodic, number one, and number two.
Yes.
each bit of it ends, and then they start up a new one.
Yeah.
So it's but anyway, I will stop yelling about something that loads of people around the world enjoy, because that simple fact alone tells me that I might be the one in the wrong. So
there's no right or wrong. You either like it or you don't, and I don't think you have to worry about that.
It's a bit like with me and cheese. How I can't stand cheese, but I look at all the people around the world who love cheese, and I go, it's possible I'm in the wrong here, but but anyway.
You don't have to be convinced, don't worry.
The Walking Dead is cheese. So now what we have, so all that's left is to figure out who it is that won this week, Netflix or cinema. Shaun, Sharon, what do you think?
Ooh,
I think
it's a tough call.
Close.
I reckon it could be possibly even be a tie. This maybe a slightly give it to cinema by 0.
I think cinema had more fours.
You think what?
So I think the cinema had more fours, but you're going to tie, aren't you?
I'm saying it's 0.0275 in favour of. So I know that's precise, but that's what I reckon in favour of cinema.
I think cinema have just edged it because of Babyteeth and because of my vote for Pinocchio. So I think cinema have just nosed ahead.
And you would be both correct. You'll be both correct. Yes. So we have what we've had. Let's see. Cinema has had a general score of 3.5, and Netflix has had a general score of 3, because every single Netflix thing was a 3, or Netflix and Friend thing was a 3 this week. And let's see how precise Shaun got. Let's see what we can do with that. It's a 0. Let's see if you divided that by. Okay, so divide that by 100. Let's find out. So divided by 100. 0.01.
Oh, that's not bad, was it?
It was.
What did I say? 2.7, wasn't it? 0.25, was it?
Yeah. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. You were a maths teacher, weren't you?
Pardon?
You said you were a maths teacher, weren't you?
No.
Okay, cool. All right, okay, cool. All right. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Go ahead, watch these things, and get in touch with us on Netflix, on Twitter at Netflix via Cinema, on Facebook at Netflix via Cinema, and tell us what you thought. Did we totally get it wrong? Do we not know what we're talking about? Are we talking out of our bums? Hey, we might agree with you. Just let us know. Let us know, and then come on and then give us your review about different things that you have seen. And especially, we would love to hear what your first visit back at the cinema was like. Until next week, when I shall have my first visit back at the cinema. I think by that time I will have seen Tenet, because Tenet is next week Wednesday, and was it Thursday? It's 26th, whatever the day is. Until next week, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye for me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Thank you for joining us. See you next week.